There's an old line from actor and director Terrence Mann where he says, movies will make you famous, television will make you rich, but theater will make you good. And it makes sense to think about it, right? I mean, obviously movies reach an enormous audience, get a huge marketing budget, but aren't very consistent work, right? It's something where someone might have had one hit film in the 70s or something, then you never see them again. Television obviously can make someone rich because if they find themselves in the right series, the right franchise, the right role, they're on Friends, they're on Office, they're on Always Sunny. That might be a check season after season, year after year, for a decade, for 15 years of their life, maybe perpetually through royalties, and that is what will make them rich. But the reason why theater is what makes someone good is that unlike movies and television where they do it once and it gets committed to film, in theater they're having to be out there every single week or maybe every single night, depending, potentially for years on end, doing the performance constantly getting practice, constantly rethinking, constantly adapting, constantly going back to, is this the way that I should be doing it? Now, obviously, I'm not trying to be a Hollywood person. I'm here talking about game development as always, out of which we've got some clear analogies here for if you want to be famous, that is where the turf of indies and drawing attention to themselves as an auteur, as a creator, potentially, when all things in the planets align and their business goes well, they're getting fame sometimes out of that. Different from, there's plenty of folks who are in AAA games in a bigger studio, lifelong career, where they're actually doing really well for themselves financially. You may have never heard of this person because they're third or fourth name in the credits, but it's on a bunch of titles you've heard of on these enormous teams where they are just delivering and shipping product year after year, knowing how to make those connections, opportunities, and teams and logistics all play out is really valuable, but it's not going to get them the same recognition as even a smaller creator of a smaller project where you probably know who Notch is. But theater, right? The thing that makes you practice, the thing that's practiced year round, season after season, that's closer to what is just building games on your own. Is game jams, is the kind of stuff we do in Home Team. It's making freeware. It's where whether or not there's currently a job to pay you to do it, whether or not someone has told you to do it a certain way, you're just going to keep doing it. Because you're not just doing it once. Because you're not just doing a hyper-specialized role. Because you're not just having one hit that you're able to kind of keep cranking out franchise sequels to for the rest of your career. If we look at what will make you good, it's going to be a high volume of projects where constantly you're making stuff. And what that means is, what that's meant for me in my path, and a lot of people I've seen and trained, has been making freeware year round. Whether it's game jams, whether it's personal projects, whether it's just solo things, whether it's stuff we do in Home Team Game Dev, right? Which is a community of people who are year round building projects where there's a variety of projects taking on a variety of roles. That's what keeps you agile. That's what keeps you practicing. That's what keeps you having to stay abreast of new changes in environments and engines and platforms and approaches in a way that just doesn't if what someone finds is a comfortable spot in a bigger company where maybe they are getting paid well, but realistically it's been a lot of years since they've had to really kind of expand their thinking around creating something entirely new. Or for that matter too, when someone has that peak recognition of they're doing things that have an enormous audience and great reach, but when they try to deviate outside of that and practice something that is more personal, more along just what they feel like doing, more just what they feel like expressing on a smaller scale, it feels demotivating to them relative to the kind of attention they were getting from these other projects. And it can be harder for them to kind of keep their energy on these other things that are more exploratory, more personal, help us find our voice, help us practice our skills. And it's very much where my breadth of skill set has come from and the way I'm able to make my living by remotely, people screen share with me. I talk them through their programming questions, their design challenges, their team production questions, is because even as of 5 years ago, I'd released over 100 games. I stopped counting about 5 years ago. Got a little video summary if you're curious, link in the description, just showing some little gameplay snippets of those first 100. But thereafter, I mean, Home Team's now released 140 games, of which I've had varying degrees of involvement in those projects. But a lot of it has been just helping support the leads and their programming people and so on. But it came from just repetition, putting in the reps, putting in the practice, going project to project. And the reason why that's so valuable, and obviously, again, like we do it in Home Team, but there's other ways you can find this to be in your life, right? I did this for probably 10, 15, 20 years before starting the kind of Home Team stuff. I guess varying degrees, 7 years before I started doing this sort of thing in college with teams. But it's something where what you're waiting for is, I won't practice until I find a job to do it, you're looking at big gaps between when you can practice. If you're looking at, I will only practice the kind of thing that a company will currently pay me to do, well, it might even still be a valid career, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not going to have that variety and that consistency of, for basically my entire life since 1997, back to back to back, one or more projects in parallel that all get released, getting taken on and released, and as soon as one finishes, start the next, because you want to practice something else, and again, it's that theater will make you good. It's that repetition. It's not just the giant titles. Theater reaches a smaller audience. right? Unless we're literally talking Broadway, most other theater is community theater, small theater, high school theater, college club theater. It's the things where it may not have that same sort of audience reach, but it's that practice, it's that consistency, it's putting in the time and just keep doing it. And that's what's going to get you better and better at it. And if that's what you crave, more than these other dimensions or axes, or if nothing else, the other part too nice about it, of course, is that it is more accessible to more people. Not everybody necessarily will be a movie star or on television on a 10 episode or 10 season series of a show, but there are far more openings in the universe for people who want to do community theater, who want to practice at the craft of acting, who want to just put in the time and get good. So it's my urge for, if what you want to do is get better at game development, and better in the sense of more adept and flexible in your skills, more general in your abilities, more able to kind of bridge gaps, more able to conceive of new games and then just create them, bring them into existence, that's going to come through that practice, which more often than not I've seen largely take the shape of back-to-back freeware year-round, non-coincidentally the kind of stuff we do in Home Team, the kind of thing I train people in. But again, even if you're not doing it in our structures and our approaches, finding that outlet, which for you might be jams, for you might be college club projects, for you might be getting together with other people at meetups in your area, if you're in a major city hub, that's where you get good. That's where you can go beyond. And this is, it's been a while since I made this point, but it's one of the things that surprised me at my time in AAA studios was how many of those people who very much were a part of big titles that you've heard of, very much, very smart, capable specialists in their field, had never really made a game on their own, had never completed a project, and maybe don't have the set of skills it takes or the ways of thinking it takes to make a smaller game. And again, it's not to say that's a negative against them, but it's to say it's different than if the reason why you're making games is because there's games you want to bring into existence, there's game ideas you want to act on and put out into the world. It's a different skill set than finding yourself in a full-time career in a bigger studio, right? And again, it's even out of the indie side. It's the friends and the peers who've done enormously well as indies. There may only be, I've known some of them who have had 2 or 3 titles per decade, and outside of that, they don't get to do nearly as much exploration as the people who are doing the back-to-back freeware in terms of made a puzzle game, next to them doing a platformer, next to them doing an FPS thing, next to them doing a strategy game. That's what I hope you'll decide to do. If you want to do it with us, again, hometeamgamedev.com. It's a great time to apply. But aside from that, catch you next time. Bye for now.